I used to think I was the strangest person in the whole world. But then I thought there are so many people in the world. There must be someone just like me who feels bizarre and flawed in the same ways that I do. I would imagine her, and I would imagine that she must be out there thinking of me too. Well, if you are out there and you are reading this, you know that yes, it's true. I'm here, and I'm just as strange as you. Frida Kahlo. So, that was my favorite quote. Hi Beans, welcome to my channel if you've never been here before. My name is Maxine. I'm a life coach and spiritual mentor here on a mission from the universe to remind humans how powerful and divine we all are, and that this world and this reality is ours to create. Welcome! If you've never been here before, I typically do a lot of videos about self-empowerment, about empowering movies and TV, and this week I am doing inspiring human beings because I think even outside of movies and such, when we can pick a real person who has done the things that we want to do or embodies the things that we want to embody, it makes it easier for us to do that because it's been done before. So we know it can be done again. So I am talking about my very first hero, really my life inspiration since I discovered her on Tumblr back in 2009, 10, somewhere around there. Time is crazy. Time is a crazy thing. So this week we are talking about Frida Kahlo, who is probably one of the most inspiring humans I can think of. Maybe I'm biased. We'll see. I'm going to tell you her story. I'm going to tell you how she has changed the world by just taking ownership of her life and herself and her art. I love her. She's my inspiration for everything. So let's get into it. Even if you do know some Frida facts, if you do already love her, stick around because I learned some things while I was doing this research. And also, it's just fun to chat about her. I could watch Frida content all day. Let's get on to the good stuff. Born Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderon on July 6, 1907 in Mexico City, Mexico, to her father Guillermo and her mother Matilde. She grew up with 3 of her 5 sisters. 2 sisters were born of a previous marriage that Guillermo had. His wife died in childbirth, and after that, his 2 oldest daughters were raised in a convent. There's not too much we know about them. Frida didn't grow up with them. Her older sister, I do know, connected with them later in life. Frida, while growing up with a doting father and a loving mother, she did not necessarily have an easy childhood. She was diagnosed with polio at the age of 6, which stunted the growth in her right leg so that she walked with a limp, and nearly died in a bus accident when she was 18 when a steel rod impaled her, suffering fractures to her ribs, her pelvis, her legs, and her collarbone. These times of near paralysis and sickness were also the times when she first discovered art. At the age of 6, while dealing with polio, she would hang out with her uncle and he taught her to draw. And later, after her accident, she rediscovered her love of art and began painting. During this time, her father had a special easel made for her so that she could paint while laying down in bed because she was in a full body cast at that time. This is when she painted her very first self-portrait, which is called Self-Portrait in a Velvet Dress. She, as I said, always had a very close relationship with her father, who was also an artist, but of the photography trade. He encouraged her art, along with encouraging her expression outside of it, never minding when she did outlandish things such as wearing men's suits in the family portrait or running about town with her communist friends. In 1922, she attended the renowned National Preparatory School in Mexico City, where she was one of 35 female students and became known for her outspokenness and bravery, which I love. This is also where she first encountered Diego Rivera. She had known about him for a while before she saw him for the first time, but she met him for the first time as he was painting a mural in her school. Oh, Diego. In 1928, Frida connected with Diego again at a local Communist Party meeting where they struck up conversation and became friends. She had always admired him as an artist, and she wanted him to evaluate her work. He was an instant fan, and from the very beginning, all the way through their relationship, encouraged her art and her expression of self. So Frida y Diego, they were married in 1929, a year after reconnecting, despite Mama Kahlo's objections. She was not a fan because it was already known at this time that Diego was a bit of a womanizer. He had already been married and divorced, currently married and getting separated when he married Frida, along with having countless affairs. I mean, is he really different from most men in history? I just want to be real. No, he wasn't. Diego Rivera was an outspoken communist and muralist in Mexico City, where he went as far as to establish the mural movement in Mexico as well as internationally. He was born on December 8th, 1886, and was nearly 20 years Frida's senior. I also personally just want to point out that Frida was a Cancer, Diego is a Sagittarius. If they had known anything about astrology, they may have known that this relationship was going to be a bit different and a bit turbulent, which it was. They kept separate homes and separate studios throughout both of their marriages. They were married twice, once in 1929 and again in 1940 after they separated in 1939. And we'll get more into that later. Infidelities, as I said, were a near constant through the marriage. I want to make clear here that Diego and Frida did very much love each other. Obviously, there were a lot of feelings here, and love and hate, there's a very thin line. I mean, you can't have hate without love. So there were very strong emotions on both sides. Infidelities throughout the whole thing. I hate to even phrase it this way, but Diego started it. He started with the infidelities. Once Frida realized that this was just part of his personality, this wasn't something that she was going to be able to change, she kind of just adapted to the situation and began to have infidelities of her own with both men and women. Most of the women, being women, Diego had already taken to bed. She got her revenge. Don't worry. Frida suffered 2 miscarriages throughout her marriage to Diego. The first was she was in New York City. Diego was painting a mural in Rockefeller Center, and they were living here. After the first miscarriage is when she painted Henry Ford Hospital. All of Frida's art is iconic. I mean, you feel what she feels when you look at it. Even the simple portraits, she somehow just added a touch of magic in there. She just somehow painted her soul onto a canvas in every painting. And Henry Ford Hospital is so heartbreaking because you can tell just how vulnerable and hurt and separate from her body and herself that she truly felt in those moments, and how alone she really was after that first miscarriage. And I think that that's something that a lot of women can relate to. Frida very badly wanted to be a mother. She was never able to be. She had her second miscarriage after they came back from New York. Diego was fired for trying to sneak a well-known communist into his mural in Rockefeller Center. At a time in American history, and let's be real, even now, communism was not heavily accepted. And that's putting it lightly. Actually, at the time, we were pretty anti-communist here. After catching him, they sent him packing, covered up that part of the mural, and that was that. Frida and Diego moved back to Mexico, and Frida has her second. She suffered the first miscarriage in 1932. I don't know if I said that. She suffered the second miscarriage in 1934 after coming back from America. Both miscarriages took a huge toll on Frida, mentally and physically. Like sometime within the next year or so, Frida caught Diego having probably the worst affair in the whole marriage, which was with her youngest sister, Christina. Frida and Christina were pretty close, so this one hit her really hard, leaving her to paint, I think it's called, a few little nips. And then she also cut off all of her hair in mourning and painted another self-portrait out of that. It's very apparent how she was feeling, and I think she accurately conveys how any of us would have been feeling in these moments. Wow. I'm gonna make a post on Ko-fi, including more of Frida's art and some extra little fun facts that I learned. So make sure you go check out Ko-fi. A year or so after that, Diego and Frida hosted Leon Trotsky, who was also a well-known communist leader at the time. They hosted him and his wife in Frida's Casa Azul, where Frida had an affair with Mr. Leon Trotsky. So, got her revenge, because Leon was definitely one of Diego's, like, heroes. I kind of love that for her, for being real. Anyway, in 1938, Frida becomes friends with Andre Breton, which I think really added to her sense of self as an artist, as Andre is who introduced her to the term surrealism and then took her to Paris to meet more surrealists and continue her studies. And this is when she has her first solo exhibition in New York and has another one in Paris the next year. Definitely think her friendship with Andre and the other surrealists, as I said, like, lifted her confidence and gave her a sense of self in a time when that had been taken from her over and over and over and over. So that was beautiful. After that, this is where they divorce in 1939, after she gets back from all of that, and Frida paints The Two Fridas, which is one of my favorites of all time. It's an artwork depicting how Frida feels torn between two of herselves, a self that is proper and beautiful and good wife, like outstanding woman, and then the other is her natural self, sitting with her legs spread in the chair, her traditional Mexican clothing, and her comfort, and her face is even darker because you can tell she's not wearing any makeup. She's not trying to make herself look beautiful. And in both of these, you see two separate halves of her heart. I'm looking up because, like, it's right there. It's staring at me. See these two pieces of her heart and these two Fridas holding hands. And it shows that conflict between being both of these people. And I think that I've always loved The Two Fridas because it shows that she is both of these people and her heart is in both of these people. Something I really feel like we can all relate to of The Two Fridas. And I really think it encompasses the duality of human nature and of a single human life so well. Frida was seriously amazing at her imagery until her friendship with Andre Breton. Again, she didn't consider herself a surrealist. Frida considered herself a realist, a portraitist, a painter. She is even quoted as saying, "I never painted my dreams. I painted my own reality." She didn't think of herself as a surrealist until it was presented to her that she was probably inadvertently doing what surrealists do, which is to make real and to, make visual the internal struggles that we have, which is what I love about surrealism. In 1940, Diego and Frida remarried. Not much changed. They still kept separate studios, separate apartments. There were still affairs, but also they still had that very intense love for each other. At the end of the day, Frida and Diego, I definitely feel like they would have done well maybe in today's society with polyamory being more widely accepted and explored now. I feel like that's something that definitely would have rang true, especially for Diego. But I think even Frida, to a certain extent, she did love Diego. She loved him despite his infidelities, and honestly, regardless of them, she forgave him over and over and over, and he forgave her. I mean, he didn't actually forgive her because he saw sex as more of just something you do for fun, like kissing somebody on the cheek. That's how Diego saw sex. I think eventually Frida just kind of accepted that about him, and the only reason they divorced wasn't necessarily the infidelity. It was the loss of self that she suffered, and the utter betrayal that came with him stepping over the line of simple infidelity to betrayal by having an affair with her sister. So I'm not trying to romanticize toxicity or anything here, but I do think it was only as toxic at the time because there wasn't another widely accepted way to be for a married couple. And I do think Frida and Diego just had very free souls Diego was a Sagittarius. I really don't have to say more than that. Diego was a male Sagittarius. And Frida was a female Cancer, but she was also a bisexual feminist who wanted social and political reform. I definitely think she would have been open to polyamory, and I don't think that at the end of the day was where most of the turbulence in their relationship came from. I think the turbulence came from, honestly, Frida being as strong as she was and Diego seeing that and just assuming that she could keep that strength up and he wouldn't have to mind it, so to speak, when that's just not how love works, Regardless, there was a lot of love, and they related to each other on more than just how much they loved each other and the fact they wanted to be married. They painted together. Their art was woven together, their futures, their goals. They both very much wanted social and political reform, where they met during a Communist Party meeting. 10 days before Frida died, they went on a social justice march together. Diego was actually the one who, shortly after Frida died, decided to turn her iconic Casa Azul into a museum to preserve her legacy. Because if nothing else, Diego always respected Frida as an artist, and he always thought her art should be seen, and he made sure that continued to happen. Frida is remembered not only for her revolutionary art, but for her revolutionary life. She was a bisexual feminist who was passionate about social reform and passionate about her country. She's quoted as often as her art is mentioned, with quotes like, "I tried to drown my demons, but the bastards learned how to swim." And at the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. Frida likely suffered physical pain for the vast majority of her life, from getting polio at the age of 6 to being impaled. After the bus accident, the damage to her hips and legs was so severe that doctors thought she would never walk again. But she did. Even, as I said before, going to a social reform just 10 days before her death, and that is after getting gangrene in her right foot in 1950. Frida persevered always. Nothing stopped her. Not politics, not her gender, not polio, not being nearly paralyzed, not being betrayed and lied to. Nothing. This life was given to her, and she took full possession of it until she died of a pulmonary embolism on July 13th, 1954, in her blue house. Frida is my number one inspiration. She has been for years. I have posters of her all over my studio. I have at least 3 Frida coffee mugs. I had to get rid of some of them. I had so many. I had so many. I have Frida stickers for my phone. I have Frida socks. I love her. I can't get enough. And I love her so much because of that quote I read at the beginning. I've always been strange. I've always been too strange for the cool kids, not strange enough for the strange kids. I always wanted to fit somewhere. I wanted to fit, and I never felt like I did. And when I read that quote, and she said, "I'm here, and I'm just as strange as you," I knew not only did I love her, and was I so grateful for those words, but I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be that for other people. I want to show you, all of you, that I'm here and I'm just as strange as you are. You aren't alone. You're not crazy. We're all here in this world trying to figure all this stuff out. And sometimes that can be really scary if you don't have someone by your side who believes in you. Frida had Diego. Frida had her father. I have my partner, and I have my soul family. I have you beings, and you have me, always. If you don't feel like you have anyone else, please don't be afraid to reach out. You're not alone. And I promise you, if you comment, there is a being that will find you that was probably looking for someone exactly like you. Don't be afraid to reach out your hands and find the people who are out there just waiting to hold them, because you deserve that. Struggle and pain are not sent as punishments, and Frida saw that. They are obstacles, they are not easy, and they are painful, but they're things that we go through, and then we keep going because we're still here. I've always wanted to embody Frida, and that's what I wake up and try to do every day. So I thought it was only fitting that I do my first Inspiring Humans episode about her and introduce her to some beings who maybe didn't know that there were other strange humans out there in the world just like them. I hope this episode educated, enlightened, or inspired you beings. I love you all so much. Don't forget to go check Ko-fi for some extra Frida art and quotes and info. Also life coaching and spiritual mentoring memberships over there. If you would like to donate one time, you can do that as well, and you will also get access to the daily affirmations and journal prompts, as well as helping me pay towards a new laptop, because I'm using one from 2013. Help me. Yeah, also make sure you're following me on Instagram and Threads so that you never miss out on any of the inspiration, education, or enlightenment, or empowerment, any updates on the world or on Gaza. On that note, make sure you check out the donation station. Donate what you can, whether that be $1 to $10 to $100. Anything helps. Send an email to your representatives, to the UN. Do what you can to help people that are less fortunate than you and who you've potentially been benefiting off of the harm that's coming to them. There's nothing wrong with seeing when you've done something wrong and being like, ooh, I want to do better. That's all we gotta do. Do better. Check out the donation station. Spread awareness, show love, always. Even if you're speaking up for what's right, make sure you do so with empathy, because people aren't gonna hear you when you're yelling. That's just the fact of the matter. But yeah. I'm also going to leave my sources in the description, as well as the links to my socials and my Ko-fi, so make sure you check that out down there. I love you all so much. That's all for now, but I'll be back soon. Kiss from the universe and me to you. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself.